how how is Ukraine, the government and its people, and what is the status of the conflict?
Well, Russia continues its aggression against Ukraine, but they are failing strategically, and we are conducting successful counteroffensive, liberating our territories and throwing back the Russian army. To our deepest regret, when we liberate these territories, we find three things. First, destroyed houses and civilian infrastructure. Second, torture rooms. And third, mass graves with civilians who were killed, many of them with hands tied behind their backs. So this just speaks for the atrocious nature of the Russian behavior in Ukraine. But we will cope with it, and we will regain our territories, and we will win.
Sir, are the victims Ukrainians or Russian? All Ukrainians?
No, there are no. This is. I'm speaking about villages, towns, and cities in Ukraine occupied by the Russian army. Therefore, it's the Russian army who kills Ukrainian civilians, tortures them, and destroys their houses, loots their houses, and also destroys critical civilian infrastructure. Ukrainians are being killed by the Russians.
Sir, in May, Ukrainian ambassador to the Philippines, Alexander Nachitailo, visited the Philippines. He made a call for the ASEAN to isolate Russia. But DFA, our foreign affairs, said the regional bloc rejected such call, saying ASEAN is distinct and offers platform for discussion for warring parties. Basically, the ASEAN, sir, cannot isolate Russia. So what's your comment on that, sir?
I'm taking the opportunity of my visit to this ASEAN summit and my conversations with foreign ministers of ASEAN countries to deliver a very simple message. This Russia that attacked Ukraine is different from Russia that you had known before. This country invades, destroys, kills, and tortures. It's hard for me to imagine how one can say that he or she wants to maintain good friendly relations with Russia. Good friendly relations with a country that disrespects borders and commits atrocities. I don't think that it really makes sense. Furthermore, ASEAN countries understand one thing. They can have different positions, but they understand one thing, that Russia attacked not only Ukraine, it attacked the UN Charter, the principles of territorial integrity. It attacked international law and the principle of inviolability of borders. So if Russia is allowed to get away with what it is doing in Ukraine because some countries want to be friendly to them, then make no mistake, the Russian behavior will inspire other countries around the world to solve territorial issues by force and to redraw borders by force. I am 100% confident that Philippines are not interested in this scenario.
Yeah, sir. Sir, if ASEAN cannot isolate Russia, how do you think can the regional bloc help in the conflict, in the settlement of the conflict?
Well, ASEAN, yesterday I signed the instrument of accession of Ukraine to the Treaty of Amity and Cooperation in the Southeast Asia. And it became possible because all ASEAN members supported this decision by consensus. So for us, it's an open message of support from ASEAN countries to Ukraine. And it means that ASEAN is looking for the ways how to support Ukraine under these circumstances. And we're exploring these options, be it the provision of humanitarian aid or the voting of your countries in the United Nations General Assembly, or making political statements. Some things do not happen in a day. But I came here to revitalize and reinvigorate our relations with ASEAN countries. I'm holding bilateral meetings, including your minister. We had a very good bilateral meeting. And I'm sure that the understanding of Ukraine and the behavior of Russia now in ASEAN countries is much better than it was.
Sir, regarding the instrument of accession, why is it just now that Ukraine signed?
You have to ask ASEAN. We launched the process of accession in 2017, but it was impossible for 5 years to secure consensus among ASEAN members about this. And we particularly appreciate the efforts of the Cambodian presidency of ASEAN in building this consensus. Once again, I understand that some countries of ASEAN are closer to Russia than others, but still they decided to allow this, to agree with this concession, with this accession, and we take it as a message of support. So it happened now. It's a politically right move, and I thank Philippines for being one of the countries who supported us.
Sir, regarding the bilaterals and other importations, sir, Ukraine is one of the world's top producer of wheat. Its invasion by Russia affects the global importation of wheat. Meanwhile, sanctions on Russia affects the global supply not only of wheat but also of fuel. On the Ukrainian side, what do you think will be the long-term effect of the conflict, of the prolonged conflict to the Philippines, to the ASEAN, and to the world?
We have a goal of remaining a reliable supplier of agricultural products to the global market. And if Russia does not withdraw from the grain initiative brokered by the United Nations and Turkey, we will continue to export our grain, sunflower oil, and corn to the global market. So food security of Africa, Asia, and other regions of the world depends on the commitment of Russia to abide by the grain initiative. If they violate this initiative, if they withdraw from it, there will be problems with food crisis, and we want to avoid it. Ukraine.
So you have no control over that, sir. Like only.
We have control over that. We are speaking with Turkey and the United Nations, and they are speaking with the Russians to broker a continuation of this grain initiative.
Sir, you met with Secretary of Foreign Affairs Enrique Manalo yesterday. You said there's a plan for the Ukraine government to build an embassy in the Philippines. Why, sir, and why now, sir?
Well, we will probably rent an embassy, not build it
Rent.
for starters. But yes, when I became foreign minister, I asked my team to develop the Asian strategy for Ukraine because we never had one. And as part of that strategy is the expansion of diplomatic presence of Ukraine in Asia. So my team brought me a short list of countries where they believed it would be important for Ukraine to open an embassy in order to boost political cooperation, trade, and people-to-people contacts. And I picked Philippines from this short list.
Sir, so you said political cooperation. So what kind of cooperation politically?
Well, we are interested in securing the support of the Philippines in the United Nations, in particular during the votings in the UN General Assembly and other bodies. It is also important to have Philippines as a friend to communicate, political messages here in Asia, because Philippines is an important regional player. So also we see interest of Ukrainian businesses in investments in Philippines, and we see potential in our mutual trade. So these were the driving forces behind our decisions.
Trade mainly with grains, agriculture.
I think it's a very simplified perception of the potential of our trade. People mostly know Ukraine for being a breadbasket, which is true, and we are ready to do it. We are ready to prioritize trade in wheat, in grain with our friends. But there are many more things we can do. For example, Ukraine is one of the most advanced countries in the world in terms of digitalizing its economy and government services. And we have some products which can make life of people in Philippines more comfortable and convenient. We also have a big capacity in pharmacy, and this is something that, according to our analysis, Philippines would be interested in. So I would call on to avoid the simplification of our trade potential.
Actually, that's what the president is pushing now, the digitalization of the economy.
We are the best partners for you because our products are of the highest quality. We have a program in Ukraine called the State on Smartphone, which means that all government services are accessible for every citizen from his or her smartphone. You don't have to go to any bureau or office to do paperwork. Everything from the registration of a company to receiving maternity payments can be done through your smartphone.
So last two questions. When will that signing of cooperation of deals happen, or the formal establishment of?
It depends on both countries. We are willing to go forward. I spoke with your minister yesterday. He confirmed that you are also ready to move forward, and we both.
On your side, when do you want it to happen?
Listen, these things do not depend. I wanted to accede to the ASEAN Treaty on Amity and Cooperation in 2017, but it happened only in 2022 because ASEAN was not ready. Yesterday, we both agreed with Enrique that Philippines and Ukraine share the will to move forward. And we both used the same phrase, when there is a will, there is a way. So I wouldn't set any deadlines, but we are ready to go forward as fast as Philippines are ready to do it.
Sir, last question. When will the war end? Or when will the conflict with Russia end?
When Ukraine wins.
That's all, sir?
Yes.
So you will sustain the war. I mean, you will continue with your defense now and until you succeed, sir.
Yes. Imagine that someone invades Philippines. Mm-hmm. Will you set a deadline for yourself? Okay, I'm fighting for 2 weeks, but in 2 weeks I'm done. Mm-hmm. I'm sure this will not be the case. Mm-hmm. You will be defending your country until you prevail and expel the invader from your territory. Why should we behave differently? We will fight until we liberate our country from the aggressor who invaded us and who committed atrocities against our people.
Sir, last, any brief statement, parting words, remarks to the world or to the ASEAN?
The future of the world order is being decided now on the battlefield in Ukraine. And it is in the best interests of all peace-loving nations in the world to support Ukraine under these circumstances and help us to win. Because when we win, the respect for international law, sovereignty and territorial integrity of all countries around the world, including in Asia, will be respected again.
Okay, sir.
Thank you.
Sir,